Plenty to unpack after a big round of footy. We dissect Collingwood's miracle comeback against the Roos. The Giants pull the plug on the power and the race for the top 8 continues to tighten. Plus, who is the recruit of the year? This is Access All Areas thanks to Crypto.com. Damian Barrett and Matthew Lloyd are both here, so let's dive straight into it. We start with Collingwood, who recorded their second biggest comeback win in club history. And Damo, they were 54 points down against the Roos early in the third term. They kicked 6 goals to 1 to win by a point.
Yeah, it was an out-of-nowhere classic, this game, Nat, for all those reasons you suggest. And the fact that North kicked the first goal of the third quarter after leading by 48 at half-time, and then to see that man take a couple of massive marks in Bobby Hill. There's controversy late. There should have been a 50-metre penalty. There is no other spin on that. That should have been 50. Whether Bailey Scott would have kicked it, who knows? And then they had the other moment too where Zach Fisher had a second chance to redeem himself. Missed ever so slightly, but when you've got a person of that nature and that calibre of kick, you'd hope that he might have kicked it. So, look, disappointing end for North because they did lose yet another game of football. But equally, Nat, the 6th biggest comeback in the history of the game. And when we talk history, we go back to 1897.
Yeah, I know. It's quite incredible. And you look at the Pies, 7 players with less than 20 games experience. They were missing 7 premiership players as well from that side. Just their ability and their self-belief is quite incredible, isn't it?
And yet again, and we'll talk about this, the Nick Dacos role within that comeback as well. And just the never-say-die nature of what they bring. 30 matches now have been decided by 24 points or less in the 65 matches that Craig McRae has coached. Just absorb that. Nearly half the matches he has coached in his short time at Collingwood have been decided by 2 goals or less. He's won 24 of them.
It's insane, isn't it?
Of a 12-point or less margin, 4 losses and 2 draws amongst that 30.
All right, Lloydie, take us through how the Pies won this game in the final term.
Well, North's pressure rating was over 200 for most of the game, and that is extreme. It dropped to 170 in the last quarter. Collingwood were 31 points down. They had to surge the footy forward. They had to take risks, and this is Collingwood at their best. When games are on the line, they just get the ball moving forward. They don't want to have it going backwards. Look at Nick Dacos, just surging forward, players running in waves, and they kick it to the open side. They don't go skinny. They always look to the wide side. So again, surge football. They just have to take risks. North probably only had to kick 1 more goal and they win this game of footy. Obviously, they would have. There's Nick Dacos, the running capacity. We'll talk about the move of Clarkson. Did he get it wrong at 3/4 time, subbing out Phillips? But again, they are just surging the footy, knocking it on, handballs forward, kamikaze type football. Nick Dacos involved for the 3rd time in this play. And again, they always look to get the ball out to the open side where there's less density, less numbers. This one was amazing. Nick Dacos, look at the pressure he's under by Shields. Shields has to keep constant touch. He doesn't bumper bar Dacos. Look at him. He's ball watching. Lets Dacos get past him. Once Dacos gets past you, you're in trouble, particularly where Shields is in his career. So too late for Shields. And what about that decision making and they're under fatigue to hit Bobby Hill like he did in that situation? Again, the open side. They want to get the ball out to the open side, not to the skinny side. Weighted beautifully out to Jeremy Howe in that situation. And this one, you just got to go long down the line, Fisher.
Well, you've got to hit the target.
You do.
And he didn't do that.
If you don't, down the line. You just had to go safe to numbers, 3 minutes 44. And what a mark this is, Damo. You love this mark.
I think it was nearly as good as the one we're about to highlight, Lordo. I mean, the courage that was required to take that mark and then kick his 5th goal to put him back in front.
We'll get to that in just a moment, but I want to get both of your opinions. And Lloydie, you alluded to it as well, but the decision to sub Will Phillips, who had done a pretty good job in the first half of tagging Nick Dacos and limiting his impact, the decision to then sub Will Phillips off and then have Liam Shields go to him.
Well, lost the game, though. And I mean, Alistair Clarkson can say what he wants, and he can say post-match that it wasn't pivotal. It was pivotal. They were doing something that was shutting Dacos down in a way that very few clubs are able to do. And then to justify it or attempt to validate it by saying it was a fresh leg component to the subbing. But Liam Shields is not the fresh leg player. No. And Liam Shields has been really good off-field in terms of leadership and rapport within the footy club, but he's costing them on ground. And again, this may be a critical way of looking at it, Nat, because there was a lot to like about what North Melbourne did. But I'm sorry, we're about to talk about George Wardlaw too. He's now lost a 19th game out of the 20 he's played. And they had a little formula that was working. It was 9 goals working in front, and they blew it.
He got it wrong at halftime, Clarkson, because they moved Daicos out of the midfield into the half-forward flank instead of sending him with him to the half-back flank to take him everywhere, and the psychological win that he already had, he just released a tag because they moved Daicos into a different position. He kicks 2 goals in the third quarter as well without Phillips on him. So I reckon they got it wrong with not following him everywhere he went.
OK, we'll circle back to North Melbourne in just a moment, but I do want to show this to our viewers who may have missed Bobby Hill's contender for Mark of the Year. I love the second lift and bit of air that he got in that day.
Well, I almost love the look away too when he's actually taking. Have a look. He's not actually looking at the ball almost when he takes it, and the landing is just exquisite and
nonchalant, wasn't he? A little bit about it. Now we want to compare that because on Anzac Day it was Jamie Elliott who flew high. Lloydie, which one was better in your mind?
I'd still like Jamie's. So when we're going to split screen them both, and I just love the position that Jamie... it's hard, isn't it? It's hard now on that. I think
they're both incredible.
And I think this is the angle where I love Jamie. Yeah. That's probably got me over the line.
I've got Elliott just, Nat. What do you got?
Bobby for mine. I just like that second lift. But they were both spectacular marks, both worthy winners should they win at the end of the year. Let's get back to the Roos. Glass half full or empty, Damo, for them?
Oh, I'm still empty, Nat. I mean, I know that a lot of North people will be really happy. And I feel that maybe in 2 years' time, we as an industry may look back, round 14, 2024, that was the turning point. I get that. But there was a game to be won, and the propulsion of momentum, if they were able to back up what they did last week against West Coast with a win against Collingwood. They've got a tough stretch of matches coming up now. Melbourne, Western Bulldogs, Gold Coast, Sydney, Carlton. We're back in that zone. You don't know where their next win is coming. It was there for them yesterday with that lead.
I'm glass half full because I saw your Hawks blow one against Port Adelaide. So let's see what North can do in the coming weeks.
And what about George Wardlaw? Because he was spectacular yesterday too.
Yeah, one of the best young players in the game, just crippled by hamstring injuries right throughout his junior career and also at North in the initial part. Now he's getting continuity in his body, as tough as they come, as powerful as they come. Yeah, and as his team gets better, he's going to be a star, captaincy written all over him, and 30 disposals and a goal, just fantastic to see. And that's why I like North Melbourne compared to other clubs, because of the kids that they've got at their disposal, and George leads the way.
Rising star perhaps, Damon?
Well, I think he has to be the favourite for it now, given the absences or the ineligibility of both Darcy and Reid.
Let's move on to the Giants now, who recorded their first win in a month of football. They came into the game having lost 5 of their last 7, a crucial win, Lloydie, against Port Adelaide, and they had 72 more handballs. Yeah,
they've just lacked connection over the last month or so, and it's been frustrating, even longer than that. It's probably been 6 weeks. Josh Kelly, we're going to talk about soon, came back into the side. They'll get Canelio back at some point, but they have really missed Josh Kelly, and Finn Callahan's a class act. I think they overpossessed the footy too much. Some have said it was great to see them back doing it. They had 72 extra handballs to touch. That's too many. So they just need to get that balance right, but good signs for them yesterday.
Sometimes you just got to grind one out, and I reckon they really did that yesterday. And Lloydie, you've already touched on it, Nat. This guy, similar to what Will Day has done to Hawthorn, the moment he's back in, they're just a different and a far better team. And it was no surprise that they clicked for the first time really, really well yesterday when they had him back.
27 disposals, 9 score involvements, kicked this goal as well. Just the Rolls-Royce Josh Kelly. Just love watching him.
Yeah, great to have him back. First game since round 9. And what about Toby Bedford as well? Because he had the tough job on vice-captain in Zach Butters, and he held him to just 17 touches, which is his lowest for the season. His equal lowest in 2 years, in fact. And then Bedford had a pretty good game himself.
One of the surprise moves of the year, and it's an interesting chat because Alex Neil-Bullen took Daicos last week, and a lot feel it affected the structure of the forward line of Melbourne. That was a risk in a sense, taking Bedford out of the Giants forward line, but at the end of the day, he limited him to 17 disposals. The Giants win, so it's a big tick for that move.
Now on Saturday at the MCG, it was all about one man, Dusty. A media ban during the week. We didn't get to hear from him ahead of his 300th game, but we certainly heard from him after the game.
I love the Tiger Army so much. I love the club so much. It means the absolute world to me. All the love I received this week has just meant the absolute world to me. So thank you everyone who sent me a message, social media, on the radio. I felt so loved this week. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate it.
pretty humble champion there, and he is just a terrific player to watch. Probably the best finals players I've seen witness live, and incredible 300th game. So much gratitude to Damo. We know that he practices mindfulness and gratitude on a daily basis.
And then there's that moment,
and then that moment.
Early, the first goal of the game. When we saw this, and what we just heard and saw there from the interview post-match, these scenes, or that scene there where he's waving to the crowd, there was a feeling of, was this a wave goodbye?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, he addressed that as best he could have in that moment when he was asked, will he return? And he said yes. But the mystery, the aura, the intrigue, the unknown, I still think it's about him. And whether it's the remainder of this year, what happens in 2025 as well as part of that. But look, fantastic occasion, and Hawthorn embraced it and soaked it up as well.
Well, let's talk about the Hawks, because they have won 6 of their last 7. If they hadn't choked against Port Adelaide, it would have been 7 in a row. Their confidence, Lloydie, and the way that they're playing, because they stood up in what was a massive occasion.
Sam Mitchell said, we knew we were going to be the villain in this game. We were going to be the villain, but they embraced it, and 92,000 fans, and they're a young team, and they didn't care. It was majority Richmond supporters, and they stood up big time, and they are must-see footy. They're a team I want to go and watch every week now, the way they're playing. It's happened pretty quickly. This is a run home. So they've got some tough challenges. Can they make the 8? Well, I'd love to see them there, the way the football they're playing, and there's no reason.
Rounds 23 and 24 are going to be interesting. If they've got 11 wins to that point of the season, Lotto, which they could easily have. And
they should go in favourite in a lot of those games with the way they're playing their football now.
Well, I'm glad you're both confident. I'm not so confident about West Coast at Optus Stadium with Harley Reid back. Let's talk about the Bulldogs, and it was the box office Bontempelli who inspired his side to a 67-point win over Fremantle. And the Dogs were impressive. They've kept their finals hopes alive, Lloydie, but their handball game troubled the Dockers.
This is when I love the Doggies, when they're at their best. They just move the ball quickly. At times they've been stagnant and they've been poor defensively, but this was the Doggies at their best. 149 points. They've kicked 23 goals, and their forward line with Jamara looked good. Cody Waitman back was sensational. But again, like I just spoke about with Hawthorn had a couple of good wins, but they've got to beat some good sides. They haven't beaten a lot, the Western Bulldogs, so now their true test come. Collingwood was a good win, but they had a lot of players out, Collingwood, so Fremantle was their best win on the weekend. But they need to keep backing it up and be more consistent. They get Darcy back this week.
And sometimes you don't know what you've got until you're forced to use it. I'm referring to Ed Richards, Nat, with the role that he's now playing midfield, and the fact that it only came about in a regular capacity when Tom Liberatore went down, and other movements needed to be made in the midfield. And he's quite elite, Lordo. Well, on a small sample of work that we've now seen with him in the middle, he's very, very, very good.
Yeah, and that's where I've been critical of Luke Beveridge over time with his positioning. Like, he was the best half-back flanker I saw in his draft year, and then at times we saw him on a half-forward flank and on a wing. He's a half-back, and now he's developed into a midfield superstar.
Now, he's been super exciting to watch, and that kicking is just elite. So Fremantle, on the flip side, they drop down to 8th position, 7 wins, 5 losses and a draw. Leading into the bye, they had 2 wins and a draw, of course, against Collingwood. This was their coach, Justin Longmuir, after the game.
I can't really explain it at the moment. Going into the bye with a big win and everyone pumping tyres up. Said to the players after the game, it just looked like a team who was desperate to keep the season alive and a team who was comfortable.
So, Damo, this is the 3rd time in the past 3 years that Frio has lost after the bye. They've clearly got an issue there. Can we trust them at all?
No, not after the weekend. No, we can't. And for that club to get comfortable with its status, why? Why would it be comfortable about anything? And I don't even look at it as a buy issue now. I just look at it as a club that doesn't know how to actually continually and regularly put together good wins of footy, because we knew there was a few problems at Melbourne, and they may have been deeper than what we realised at the time. They belted them by 92 points prior to the weekend loss.
Now, I love nothing more than a party, and the Amartey party was in full swing on Saturday night. This was an absolute joy to watch. 9 goals to lead the Swans to a 42-point come-from-behind victory over Adelaide. He didn't even touch the ball, Lloydie, in the first quarter, and then comes out and kicks 9 goals.
And often he was subbed out a lot for Buddy Franklin last year, and it's amazing when Buddy has moved on, the growth of some of these guys. And he's the one. He's gone past Logan McDonald. He's way ahead of McLean. And it was probably the one doubt I had on the Sydney Swans. Wolves, they've got everything, but whatever their key forwards, are they good enough? And he's improving it.
I think McDonald's playing a really key role without hitting the scoreboard hard. But you talk about a party. It was a party pooper. John Longmire.
I know, I've got a bone
taking him
to
off
pick with him. That is crap, John. What are you doing? 2 minutes to go. You don't put him on the bench, Lloydie. You've had a kid kick 10 goals on the weekend?
Yeah.
You didn't spoil that party.
No. The fitness coach wanted him off at 9. I said, no, he's kicking his 10th. So that's what had to be done.
I know, and we haven't seen a bag of 10 since, Buddy, and that was 2017, I think it was. We were crying out for it.
John Longmire kicked 14 and 12 in the 1 year. He wasn't taking off late in those games. Come on, horse.
If that was me, I wouldn't have even listened to the runner.
Just stayed on the ground and dealt with it later and got your 10th goal. I like it. Now, we have to talk about Brodie Grundy here as well, because the two-time All-Australian put on a ruck masterclass against the Crows, 31 touches, 9 clearances. The Swans gave up pick 46 and a future second rounder for him. This has just been a great move for Brodie and for the Swans.
But equally, Nat, it hasn't been a surprise. We know that he's an All-Australian times 2, and one of those years he was the starting All-Australian ahead of Max Gawn. So that's what we knew he could do. He wasn't given a chance at the last year at Collingwood with injury and also decisions that had been made to move him out. Given no chance at all last year as a Melbourne player, but he's equally been the most important part of the Sydney Swans operations this year.
Recruit of the year, what do you reckon, Lloydie?
Yeah, it would have to be. I think the way he's just that important to them. He just has to be. The Adelaide Crows, Nat, who were beaten by Sydney, they were brave early, and I like their style of football early in the game, but they've got to get back to this. Last year, they were the #1 scoring team in the competition. Now that's 12th. They were a good stoppage side. They punished you from turnover. That's all dissipated. But I liked what I saw early. I think maybe they've hit rock bottom. And I saw a big improvement for a half. They're another team. They're a bottom 4, bottom 5 club at the moment. But they've got to go in with that mindset like they did against Sydney, where they probably thought, we're underdogs, let's just throw caution to the wind. They've got to do more of that from here because they've been too safe.
So we know that Matthew Nicks has 2 years to go because he re-signed at the start of this year, Damo. But the regression is significant. He said post-match he still has the full support of the football club behind him. I can't see them making a move to axe him at this point, but certainly the supporter group is impatient.
Oh, it is, and it deserves to be. It's valid in being impatient, but I'm with you. They've made the decision against what I think the industry felt was the right thing to do, but they did to its credit, and it's probably taken away the heat over his actual role in 2025 operations. He will be there, Nat, is the way I read it.
So the Lions survived a final quarter scare against the Saints. They held on to win by 20 points. Lloydie, are you concerned about the fact that, they led by 37 points at three-quarter time and then the Saints got to within 7 and they're letting these leads slip and having lapses in games? Yeah,
I'm concerned, Nat. So I really want to see them make the finals because they're too good not to be there. The talent, the way they beat the Dogs the week before was impressive, but yeah, they just lapse, and there were some of the lapses. So they get the win, but they let St Kilda back into it. So just moments like this where Max King has just the space. They're just thinking someone else is going to hand over. At one stage, Harris Andrews just got the back lines together and berated them and said, this isn't good enough. And then that last quarter, if it wasn't for the Windhager free kick, Damo, they might have lost.
Yeah, it's a good point because there was 7 points of difference at that stage, having been a bigger margin. He had a massive last quarter, Liam Henry, didn't he? And he rolled his ankle late, but he was crucial to the comeback. And yeah, you're right. The Windhager free kick changed that back Brisbane's way.
It was a surprising shootout too because I looked at this game on Saturday night and I was like, I might just watch Bridgerton instead. But then flicked over and saw the score and the Saints actually hit the scoreboard. So it was nice to see a nice change and despite the fact that they lost, some positives for the Saints. Let's take a look now at the Crypto.com tipping leaderboard. I'm not sure there's too many positives, although
you got one back.
We did get one back, but we're still so far away.
Never again, Richmond.
Super disappointing. Oh, you tipped Richmond.
I tipped Richmond. I fell for the emotion of Dusty.
Shame on you. You're still hating against the Hawks, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
I feel like you are. Now, the Carlton Respects game is on Friday night at the MCG. Carlton and Geelong. It's going to be a blockbuster of a game, but it's also a really important game because the Carlton Respects program is aimed at promoting gender equality for the prevention of men's violence against women. And Damo, we've spoken about this at length on AFL Daily and a number of other shows, but enough is enough, isn't it? We need to all do better. We need to have really uncomfortable conversations and get things wrong too, but be able to talk about it in a safe environment. We need to raise our boys better so that we can put a stop to this men's violence.
Yeah, you're big on and we've learnt that the conversation is the starting point to all these issues, and if some of those words are awkward at the time, wade through that moment. And Paddy Kinnersley at the Carlton Footy Club is a powerful voice in all of this space.
She's an absolute inspiration, someone I look up to. So if you can, have the conversation this week, and if Carlton Respects, at least gets you to get out there and chat to your mates or your family members about it, they're doing their job. That is all we have time for on Access All Areas. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next Monday.